بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله وكفاه والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فالسلام الله عليكم ورحمته تعالى وبركاته. We're going to be taking a look at some questions that have come. These at times are quite common, and I have been repeatedly asked some of these, so I'd like to go through them, offering an explanation bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. A question that has come to me quite often is to do with the haircut. That a haircut which is quite often described as short back and sides, so having shorter hair around the sides, around the back, is this haram? And there is quite commonly an understanding amongst people that to have such a haircut is haram. So you see that many people, when they're going to the masajid, they're going to the madaris, they're going to all of these places, especially the younger lot, if you like, they get told off quite often that this is a haram haircut, you can't have things like this. And then all of a sudden they'll probably see someone like me and they'll then tell me as well that isn't that haram, and hence all these questions and a lot of these comments as well. At times people will say, look, I just totally can't understand how this person, being a mufti or being whatever, can have his hair in a manner that is haram. So I'd like to take a quick look at this as a question, bi-idhnillah. Now, what they're referring to is called al-qaza' in Arabic. Okay, qaza', that's with an ayn at the end. Now, there is a hadith. So the source or the origin of this understanding comes from this hadith, which is in Sahih Muslim. Is transmitted on the authority of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu. It's also in Bukhari that the Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited qaza'. Now, qaza', what is the definition of qaza'? Qaza' was understood to mean linguistically patches, and it comes from the word in Arabic referring to clouds that they appeared in certain types of patches almost. And so that's this understanding that the Prophet ﷺ, he forbade qaza', and he was talking about the hair at the time. Therefore, this is haram. This is the understanding that what people are conveying, what they're taking from this hadith. Now, that is not necessarily accurate. Okay, I'm not saying that some people are not entitled to an opinion like that. They may be, and people do hold that opinion. Some. That is not necessarily accurate in terms of this hadith. Many ulama understood this hadith to be different. This hadith is also transmitted, the same type of one, from Ibn Umar. In the version in Nasa'i actually mentions, which is also in Abu Dawud as well, that a child kind of runs past or comes past the Prophet ﷺ, and this child has a strange type of haircut where he's got like a plait, almost like a certain amount of his hair coming out, and the rest is completely shaved off. Or he's got this patch on the top of his head full of hair, and everything else around on his head is shaved off. And the Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith that, what is this mahadha, that he says that utru kulla aw ihlaq kulla, that either shave or remove all of his hair or leave all of his hair. That what are you doing? What is, this is a form of almost like a disfigurement that's going on, that you are, you're getting this child and you're kind of distorting his hair like that. In response, in line with this hadith, Ibn Umar transmits the general version, saying the Prophet ﷺ forbade this action, qaza'. Nafi', along with Ubaidullah, when transmitting that hadith or when commenting on it, explain qaza' is to shave in patches. Okay. Now, Ubaidullah himself, he mentions that that as to a qassa, as to just shave, as to just cutting of the hair. Or he says al-qafa, that, like, for example, the back of the head, lil ghulam, he does actually mention for the boy. He says these type of things do not actually come into that hadith. Okay, just to explain. Furthermore, we have a narration, the same. So here on one hand you have Abu Dawood transmitting this hadith from Ibn Umar. Abu Dawood is also transmitting a hadith from Anas ibn Malik radiallahu an, who explains that he had almost like a plait of hair. He had this braid, dhu'aba they call it in Arabic. His hair kind of plaited and braided. And he says that and that does not mean a dhu'aba isn't, we're talking about the whole, we're talking about it coming out of the back or on the side, a kind of plait or braid, if you like. It's called a dhu'aba in Arabic. Now the dhu'aba, he says that my mother said to me that I will not cut this dhu'aba of yours, for I have seen, she says, la ajuzuha, that I will not cut it, I will not remove it. I have seen that the Prophet ﷺ at times held you by it, and he would kind of like, whilst he's kind of taking you, sometimes hold on to your plait, and he would kind of, this braid, and so out of love and honor for the Prophet ﷺ, I won't shave or remove this dhu'aba. Furthermore, you have some narrations from other companions, Zayd ibn Thabit radiallahu anh, for example, who is described in certain hadiths as when he was a young person engaged in the deen, that when he was coming to listen, to learn, that he was described as he had lahu dhu'abatan, he had two kind of plaits and braids, main kind of coming out. Now, the point of mentioning that, before I even get to the rulings of the scholars, the point of mentioning that is when a person can kind of plait or braid his hair from, let's say here, from the sides or from the back, this shows that their hair is unquestionably of different lengths. You cannot have, for example, long hair and all of the hair on your head is of equal length. We know from the description of the Prophet ﷺ that he had long hair. In some narrations it was a wafra, kal wafra, and wafra they would usually say is up to the earlobe, just around there, or limma and jumma, and there's a difference. Some say that jumma is longer than the limma, but the point is that at some times the Prophet ﷺ had hair that reached up to his shoulders. At other times it was just long enough to hang probably about there at the bottom of the neck, if you like, and at other times it was slightly shorter, as in it hanged just below the earlobes. Now, anybody who has had long hair or understands long hair will realize that you cannot have it at different lengths. You see, so for example, I personally have had long hair, and anybody that is aware of this will understand that as your hair is growing long, the hair, for example, in the sideburns or around here cannot be the same length as the hair that's growing over here, because this hair will grow and reach right towards the back. This hair at the same time can't be of the same length. It gets trimmed. So this argument that every single hair on the head of a person must be of equal length is a redundant argument, actually. I mean, it has no basis, no clear basis at all in the Quran or Sunnah. The hadith that they're talking about are referring to qaza', which is a form of disfigurement. It's not in any way talking about having hair which is of unequal length. Even then, the ulama said that this qaza' was in essence prohibited because it shared some resemblance with certain non-Muslim practices. And when we say non-Muslim practices that were almost deemed associated with their religion. So having hair in a particular way, as certain monks did of certain times. So you find that certain monks would do things like they would shave off the entire head and leave a certain patch of hair. Now, having and several places and customs on a religious basis continue to do that till today, whether it's going to be aspects of Buddhist monks or the monks you will see even throughout history, some Christian monks and things like this. But the point being that many of the ulama said this prohibition came in line with that, the tashabbuh, the type of similarities it carried to non-Muslim religious practices. As to somebody who just does qaza, and I'm not even talking about unequal here, let's not confuse the two. Qaza in itself, if you were shaving, so let's say somebody is not just doing short back and sides, because short back and sides does not fall under qaza. That is a distorted understanding taken from this hadith to say, well, qaza is talking about unequal length. It is not talking, it's talking about patches where parts are completely shaved and parts are left. So even if we take this understanding of qaza, so sometimes you've seen, I don't know how popular it is now, but many years ago there was a trend for a hairstyle like a step cut. So people would completely shave a portion of their head, like around the sides, and they would leave this on top. And I think there's variations of that type of hairstyle still around. So the point is, what about something like that? Now that at least it ties in a bit more accurately with the hadith. Short back and sides and these type of things don't even tie in with the hadith. Okay, that's just a misrepresentation. But something like a step cut is, at least it falls in line with the hadith. So what do ulama say about people who do actually do qaza? Now, if we categorize that as qaza, there is a difference of opinion amongst the ulama. Even then, many of the ulama, including from the Maliki madhab, from Imam Malik, it is understood, and ulama before him in Medina, like from the Tabi'een, Qasim and so on, these are the people. They have spoken about, either they have said that qaza was specific, that it wasn't, the Prophet ﷺ was not saying it was forbidden in terms of it being haram, just per se, because of itself. They've given the same explanations that this was due to tashabbuh or things like this. And then there have been some ulama that have said that this is, regardless of the intention, this will be discouraged. It is makruh. Imam Nawawi as well sheds light on that, saying that this karaha that the ulama speak of is karahatu tanzih. The Malikiyah just have karahatu tanzih anyway, regardless. I mean, in the main understanding of the madhab. So when things are makruh, they are never by makruh, they do not mean haram. I was saying Imam Nawawi also just clarifies as well, saying that this karaha is a karahatu tanzih, meaning it is discouraged, as in, because there's some hadith that still ties into it, there's a sense of discouragement, but it is not forbidden. Okay, now, so that's to summarize once again, that having a haircut like short back and sides or something like this, which is very common, this is in no way forbidden. It is absolutely, that is permissible, and it does not fall under the hadith of qaza. However, to do qaza, as in if somebody was completely shaving parts of his head and leaving patches, that at least falls under the categorization of the hadith, at least. Then, in the main understanding, it's still not haram, because it is not done to distort. It is not done to kind of make resemblance with another religious practice of another religion. So based on these two understandings, at most it will be makruh, a lesser, a very light, or what is called karahatu tanzih, according to other madhabs, or makruh, according to some of the ulama of the madhab, which is still a part of what they call ibaha, permissibility. So just to clarify, you are allowed to have a haircut like that. The key, I mean, just to simplify here as well before we close this question, the key point and objective, the Sharia has maqasid, it has objectives, and the key maqsad here is to avoid disfigurement to avoid distortion. Okay, something that is done to almost mutate and make somebody on purpose kind of look ugly, or to kind of like, these type of things have been kind of warned against in the Sharia, that the deen is a natural deen. It is not about enhancing, it was about the opposite, about making, so that child that the Prophet ﷺ saw is about making them appear to be almost disfigured in a way. And it's those type of actions that are condemned within the deen. Jazakumullah al-khair. For that, inshallah, we will continue with other questions at another time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.